Good morning, students. Today we will discuss losses in piping system. So let us consider a pipe as shown here, and some fluid is flowing in this pipe. So what we'll do is we'll consider control volume between section 1 and section 2 inside the pipe. So this pipe wall and this section 1 and this section 2, they all make a control volume, and those are the control surfaces. So let us say that the flow is steady and incompressible in this pipe. Then we'll apply the steady energy equation for this control volume. So that is the energy equation is Q dot minus W dot. That is the heat given to the control volume minus work done by control volume is equal to the net rate at which energy is leaving the control volume, this surface integral. And then the work is divided into three categories: shaft work, pressure work, and viscous work. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll assume that there is no shaft inside the pipe, so shaft work will be zero by that assumption. We are only interested in pipe flow, nothing inside the pipe. Next, viscous work. So for that we will rely on the definition of rate of work done, that is the power. So that is equal to dot product of force and velocity. So the viscous work will be simply dot product of viscous forces with fluid velocity. Now this will be done at the control surfaces because this force is surface force. So we need to consider all the surfaces of the control volume, and they need to calculate dot product of viscous force and fluid velocity. Okay, so that is easy. One surface of the control volume is this pipe wall, and at the pipe wall the fluid velocity will be zero due to no slip boundary condition. So there the viscous work will be zero because fluid velocity is zero. Okay, so what is left? This section 1 and section 2. So at section 1, normal stress will be zero if we assume fully developed flow in this pipe. So then del u by del x is zero if u is the velocity along the axis of the pipe. So you may recall, you can go back to that fully developed flow in a pipe. You will see that normal stress, which is del 2u by del x2, that will be zero, mu times. Okay, and even if there was any shear stress, so on this surface shear stress will be in this direction along the plane, but the velocity of fluid will be normal to this section because flow is fully developed. Only axial velocity will be there will be no radial component. So again, even if there is any shear stress, the dot product will be 0, cos 90. So viscous work at section 1 will be 0. Same thing I can say at section 2. So what I found is that viscous work will be 0 in total at all control surfaces. So work done by viscous forces will be 0. So only work that is left is pressure work. So what is pressure work? Same definition. Pressure work will be equal to dot product of pressure force and fluid velocity. So pressure force is P into N cap. Now this is work done by the control volume. The force acting on the control volume will be minus P times N cap, where N cap is the normal vector to the control surfaces. So that minus sign will go away when you consider work done by the control volume. It will be P times N cap and then dot product with fluid velocity vector. That is the work done over a small portion of the control surface. Then you integrate that, so you'll get total work done as the pressure forces by the control volume. Now we have calculated all the components of the work done by the control volume, so we can put that back into the energy equation. So what we saw was only pressure work was surviving, the shaft work and viscous work was 0. So what we do is we take the pressure work to the right hand side of the energy equation. So the final form of energy equation is this: Q dot is equal to integration of rho E, and then pressure component is taken on this side, so E plus P by rho, or rho E plus P times V dot n cap dA. So now this integral we need to calculate over the control surface. So that will give us the net heat given to the control volume. Again, this integral involves dot product of velocity vector with outward normal vector. So at the walls of the pipe, due to no slip boundary condition, fluid velocity will be 0. So at this control surface, that is the pipe wall, this integral will be 0. So we need to calculate this integral only at inlet and outlet. At the outlet, velocity vector will be along the outward pointing normal, so this will be positive. Here the dot product will be 0, velocity is in this direction and outward pointing normal is in opposite direction, so this integral will be negative. So Q dot will be simply this, same integral calculated section 2 minus, that is the outlet minus inlet. So we need to evaluate this integral to find out Q dot. So let us consider this integral is same in both places. So let us just calculate one integral. Let us say this I1. I1 is equal to this. And recalling the definition of energy, E is made of three components: the internal energy U hat plus kinetic energy half V square, where V is the magnitude of fluid velocity, and potential energy Gz. So this definition of E we keep here. Then this integral becomes rho times U hat into VdA. Okay, and then next half V cube dA, then rho Gz into VdA, and last one this P into VdA. Okay, now what we do is we simplify this integral. So let us say this U hat we take outside. We say that this U hat is somewhere defined at the center of this cross section U1, that is at the center of section 1, times integral of VdA. This remain as it is. Here also we take Gz back, and Z we say G is anyway constant, so G can be taken out. Z we take out, and we say Z is somewhere at the middle of section 1. So that is the height, you can say height of the center of the inlet, times VdA, and this also remains as it is. Now we consider the definition of average velocity. So average velocity is defined as the mean velocity at any cross section. So that is the integral of VdA divided by total area. So for section 1 will be integral of VdA at section 1 divided by total area of the section 1. So from this definition we can write integral of VdA as average velocity times area. So the integral will become, the first was rho times U1 integral of VdA. So integral of VdA will become A1 V1, where this V1 average is average velocity at section 1. Second term we do not touch right now. Then the third term was rho G Z1, again integral of VdA. So that becomes A1 V average. Then last term was integral of PVDA. Now recall that in pipe flow, pressure did not vary with radial direction. Okay, del P by del Y was 0, del P by del R was 0. So I can take out pressure. So I can say pressure will be simply pressure at the center of point 1 P1, and then inside will be integral VDA, which is again A1 V1 average. Okay, so that is what is left. Now A1 into V average, A into V average will be simply volume flow rate at any section. So this A1 into V1 average will be volume flow rate at section 1, and when multiplied by density, it will be mass flow rate. So this term I can write as simply m dot times u1, this m dot times gz1, and here I can divide and multiply by rho. So then I will get m dot by rho into p1. Okay, where m dot is mass flow rate, and from mass conservation, whatever mass is entering here should leave here. So rho a1 va1 average should be equal to rho a2 v2 average. So this is incompressible flow, so rho is same at both places. Next, we recall the definition of kinetic energy correction factor. So the kinetic energy correction factor alpha was given by this 1 upon a integral of v over v average cube dA. So that was like, if we calculate the kinetic energy crossing the cross section, that will is equal to integral of half rho v cube dA. That is the kinetic energy of the fluid that is entering any cross section, and that we try to express in terms of average velocity. So that we try to write in terms of half rho v average cube into area, and then both will not be equal because v varies with radial direction. So that is why we need to include a correction factor alpha. Okay, so alpha will be this. So from here what you can see, this integral half rho v cube dA, this is just kinetic energy at section 1 and at section 1 for I1. This I can write like this, and then from here I can extract mass flow rate also. So rho v bar into a, that will be mass flow rate. So this I can write as half alpha m dot v average square. So now we come back to that integral I1 is equal to m dot u1 hat plus half rho v cube dA integral of v cube dA m dot gz1, and then this m dot p1 by rho. This was our integral. Now this also we have figured out. We can write it like half alpha m dot v1 average squared. So this integral we have simplified. Then we can go back to now energy equation q dot, that was simply equal to I2 minus I1. This integral I calculated at section 2 minus section 1. So when we put the value of I in this, we get q dot is equal to m dot u2 hat minus u1 hat, then half m dot, see m dot will be same at section 1 and 2, so m dot can be taken out, and then alpha 2 into v2 average square minus alpha 1 v1 average square. So alpha 2 and alpha 1 could be different at different sections of the pipe, because we have not assumed that area is same, although it looks like in the figure, but in the pipe area may change. So we have not considered till now that it is same. Then m dot g Z2 minus Z1 and m dot by rho P2 minus P1. And then what we do is we'll separate terms at section 1 and section 2. So what we get is P1 by rho m dot. What we do is we'll divide by m dot everywhere. So P1 by rho and then GZ1 and half alpha V1 square, V1 average square. This is at section 1, and then same thing at section 2 will be equal to U2 hat minus U1 hat minus Q dot by M dot. So this will be the final form of energy equation after all the modifications. Now you look at this term. This term is represent mechanical energy. This is kinetic energy, this is potential energy, and this is pressure energy. So these three terms together represent the mechanical energy of fluid per unit mass. Okay, so if I write this equation in words, it will be decrease in mechanical energy when going from section 1 to 2. So flow is like this. So as I'm going from point 1 to point 2, this is energy at point 1 minus energy at point 2. So this is the decrease in energy. So decrease in mechanical energy is equal to increase in internal energy, U2 minus U1. Increase in internal energy, and then plus Q was heat given to the system. So minus Q will be heat given by the system. So plus heat transferred to the surrounding by the fluid between point 1 and 2. So this is the energy equation in words for this pipe. So now what we do is we further divide that energy equation by G. So the mechanical energy terms becomes P1 by rho G plus alpha 1 V square by 2G n plus Z1, and same thing at section 2 is equal to something at the right side. So that whole something which was like losses. So this difference is the loss in the mechanical energy. So this loss in the mechanical energy we are representing by HF. This HF is called the head loss. So this is nothing but the loss in the mechanical energy of fluid from going from section 1 to section 2. And what is the unit? You see the unit will be in meters. You can see from this term Z. So from dimensional homogeneity principle, units of all terms should be in meters because the unit of Z. So the unit of head loss HF also will be in meters. Okay. Now consider a pipe which is of uniform cross section. So that means which is shown in this figure, a uniform cross section pipe. So in that case, the average velocity at section 1 and 2 section 2 will be same because the cross section is not changing. So A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. If A is not changing, then V average should not change, and then this alpha will also be same, the correction factor, because same velocity profile will exist at both sections. Okay, so if that is same, then what will happen? These terms will cancel. Okay, also assume that the pipe is horizontal, so that Z1 is also equal to Z2. So in that special case, what we'll see is the HF is equal to simply the pressure difference, P1 minus P2 by rho G. So if we consider a horizontal pipe of uniform cross section, so in that case the head loss, that is the decrease in mechanical energy, is equal to pressure drop divided by rho G. So the loss, that mechanical energy loss, can be directly measured by measuring the pressure drop that is occurring across the pipe as the flow happens. This is for a case when a pipe is there of uniform cross section. Okay. Now in general, this head loss is divided into two categories. One is the major loss and another is the minor loss. Okay. What are minor losses? Minor losses are due to effects such as pipe entrance. So what is pipe entrance? So what we were assuming that when in a pipe flow is fully developed, but imagine that if water enters in a pipe with uniform velocity, it will take some time to flow to become fully developed. So that distance is called entrance length, and the losses occurring in that region are considered inside minor losses. Then what if there is a sudden change in the cross section of the pipe, sudden expansion or contraction? So that will also lead to some losses, which comes in the category of minor losses. Then there will definitely will be bends in the pipes. So whenever there is some piping, this you will have to bend it somewhere. For example, in your house you can see that pipes will have bend definitely. So those bends also will lead to some losses. Walls, definitely you have walls like your taps. So to allow the flow to happen or not, close the flow. So walls are there to control the flow rate. So those walls also lead to some losses in the flow or losses in the mechanical energy. And then last is gradual expansion. So instead of sudden, you have some gradual expansion happening in the flow, expansion or contraction in the pipe. So all these kinds of changes, geometrical or flow changes, leads to losses which are considered inside minor losses. So this major loss we can calculate because we have already calculated the velocity profiles in a laminar pipe flow. So recall that for laminar pipe flow, the expression for pressure drop along the length of the pipe. So if pipe is of length L and diameter D, then the pressure drop occurring along the flow was given by this expression, 128 mu L by pi d raised to the power 4 into Q. Q is the volume flow rate, mu is the viscosity of the fluid. So this we had seen in the analytical solution of pipe flow. So this we can rearrange. So volume flow rate is simply the average velocity times area, so pi d by 2 square into V average. So after some manipulation, you will get the expression of pressure drop as this, 32 L by D rho V square divided by RE into D, where RED is the Reynolds number for pipe flow based on the diameter of the pipe and average velocity inside the pipe. Then, as we had seen for a straight pipe with fully developed flow of uniform cross section, the head loss is simply the pressure drop divided by rho g, and pressure drop for laminar flow is this. So we can put this expression of delta P here. So we'll get the expression for major head loss in a laminar pipe flow, and this is given by this 32 L by D V average square by G divided by RED. So you can see that the major head loss in a laminar pipe flow will be proportional to length of the pipe. So that is obvious, right? The longer pipe we have, more frictional losses it will take, and it is inversely proportional to diameter. So if your diameter is small, losses will be high, and if your pipe diameter is large, losses will be low, and it is also inversely proportional to RE. So if RE is high, losses will be less. If you have a low Reynolds number of flow, losses will be high due to friction. Okay, so that is the major head loss for a laminar pipe flow. For turbulent pipe flow, we don't have any expression for the velocity profile and anything, so it is not possible to express pressure drop in terms of flow rate for laminar pipe flow using an analytical expression. So what we'll do is we'll switch to dimensional analysis. So from experiments we'll try to find out some relationship for major hot loss in terms of these parameters. So what we'll do is we'll try to develop a dimensionless expression for pressure drop. So the pressure drop in this pipe flow, this we can say is a function of, from experiments people have found that, or we have already seen for laminar cases, that this pressure drop will be a function of pipe diameter, length, fluid density and viscosity, and average velocity inside the pipe, that we already have seen for laminar case. But for turbulent cases, from experiments it is known that it also depends on the roughness of the pipe material. This is surface roughness. If pipe is very smooth, the friction effects will be different than compared to a very rough pipe. Okay, so this is like analogous to solid surfaces. If you have two very smooth solid surfaces, the friction will be very small, and if you have a very rough surface, so the friction will be large. Similar thing like that, the surface roughness dependence comes in fluids also. So we can say that the pressure drop delta P, it will be a function of dl E, which is surface roughness, average velocity V, density rho, and mu, fluid viscosity. Okay, then using our dimensional analysis knowledge, there were two methods by which we could non-dimensionalize this expression. One is pi method or Ibsen method. So any method you can use. So it is an exercise for you, like you try to non-dimensionalize this. So when you finally non-dimensionalize this expression, this is what you'll get: delta P by rho V square, V average square, is equal to function of L by D, E by D, and RE. So this is like non-dimensional pressure drop occurring across the pipe. So you imagine, so remember that this is what, there is a horizontal pipe with uniform cross section, and we are trying to correlate the pressure drop occurring across the inlet and outlet. So this is non-dimensional pressure drop that is occurring across the pipe, where V average is the average flow velocity inside the pipe. So this is the non-dimensional pressure drop in the pipe, which we find will be a function of non-dimensional length of the pipe and non-dimensional surface roughness of the pipe, and as a function of Reynolds number. Okay, then from experiments it has found that the non-dimensional pressure drop is directly proportional to length of the pipe. So this is coming from experiment. So this expression we can further simplify. Instead of saying the function of three independent variable, this L by T we can take out, because we know it is directly proportional. So non-dimensional pressure drop is directly proportional to L by D times another function. So this function will change of E, the surface roughness, and RE. This we can say. Then what is the head loss? In terms of head loss, this is in terms of pressure drop. Then the head loss is simply delta P by rho G. So we divide this delta P by rho G, so we'll get head loss. So when we put that, we'll get head loss HF is equal to L by D, V square by G, and then this function f1. Okay, now this function f1, so what we try to rewrite it, so we write this head loss as hf is equal to some another function f times L by D and then V square by 2G, where this f is, if you compare these two things, this f is simply twice of this f1. Okay, so this is twice of f1, which is f1 is function of surface roughness and Reynolds number. So what we saw was that the head loss in a pipe flow in general was hf is equal to this small f times L by D times V square by 2G, where V square is, or V is average velocity inside the pipe, and then this F is called friction factor. So this has been given, this function F has been given a special name, that is the friction factor. And what we saw in the previous slide, that it was a function of surface roughness and Reynolds number. So now, in order to know the head loss in a pipe, what we need to know is simply this friction factor. Then L, D, V square by 2G, all other things will be known to us, because that is in our control. How long is the pipe, what is the diameter of the pipe, and how fast fluid is flowing inside the pipe, that we already know, that is in our control. So only we need to know this friction factor F to calculate how much head loss will be occurring in a pipe. And why we need to know this head loss? Because if we want to have a particular flow rate in a pipe, then we need to provide that much amount of pressure drop delta P or head loss. We need to account for that much head loss. If we are pumping fluid and our pressure drop or our pump is not able to provide this much head loss, then what will happen? Automatically flow rate will decrease inside the pipe, because the pump will not be able to overtake the frictional losses inside the pipe. So that is the why this knowledge of friction factor or head loss is required. Okay, and this friction factor is only accounting for major head loss, that is the head loss due to frictional effects in a straight pipe. There were other kinds of losses, minor losses, which were due to bends, walls, area changes, right? So in a whole piping system, we need to account for all these losses, major and minor losses, and calculate the complete head loss. And then our pump needs to support that head loss. It needs to provide that much pressure drop. Then only our piping system will be having the desired flow rate. Okay. So now if you go back to laminar pipe flow case, which we saw in the previous slides, then you can compare the expression of head loss for pipe flow from the previous expression. So you will find that the friction factor for laminar pipe flow is simply 64 by Re into D. So in laminar case, we did not have surface roughness in there. So for laminar case, friction factor is, we have an analytical expression for friction factor 64 by Red, where Red is the Reynolds number based on pipe diameter. Then for turbulent flow, so what happens for turbulent flow? What people have done? People have measured this head loss or the friction factor as a function of Reynolds number and surface roughness. People have done measurements for various Reynolds number and for various surface roughnesses. And finally, there is an empirical relation for friction factor. After doing all the measurements, people found that this expression fits the data in best possible, to the best, right? So this is the expression for calculating the friction factor in the turbulent flow in general. Okay, so this fits the data to the best. of percentage error. So this friction factor, this is what has been plotted in this plot. So this is called Moody chart. So Moody was the engineer who plotted or who charted this friction factor as a function of Reynolds number and surface roughness. So in this chart you can see for low Reynolds number when flow is laminar, you see this 64 by RED plot, that is for laminar flow cases. And when you increase the Reynolds number, this is transition region. So there is a transition region. As you keep on increasing Reynolds number in a pipe flow, initially it will be laminar, then there will be a transition region where flow will switch from laminar to turbulent. So this transition from laminar to turbulent flow is not immediate, it takes some time. So it takes some flow range of flow Reynolds number for flow to become turbulent. And after flow becomes turbulent, this these lines you see, so this is the variation of friction factor as a function of Re for different pipe roughness. So each line is representing F as a function of Re for a particular surface roughness, and this is for a smooth pipe. So as expected, you see that as I'm increasing the surface roughness, what is happening? Friction factor is increasing at any Reynolds number. You see, as I'm increasing the surface roughness, as surface is becoming rough, the surface of the pipe 1, the friction effects are increasing, because as friction factor will increase, your head loss will increase, because head loss was just directly proportional to F. Okay, so that's it about the friction factor. Thanks.